Hello, everyone. You're all very welcome. My name is Gavin Grimes. I'm the VP of Language Services here at Smartling. And today's session is called AI-powered human translations, bridging the gap between the old and the new. I'm thrilled to be joined by two of our leaders in our industry, Liliana Pardo-Becerra, Senior Manager of Localization at Vimeo, and Juan Munez, Senior Manager of Localization in Bluebeam. So you're both very, very welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gavin.
So maybe we'll start by just doing a quick introduction about yourself, about your company, and maybe at a very high level, your LOC program. And maybe Liliana, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I'm the Senior Localization Manager at Vimeo. Our team is part of the marketing organization. More specifically, we sit under the marketing operations team, and we are 2 people strong. We translate right now into 6 languages, soon to be 7. And yes, we're very excited to be a part of this panel.
Fantastic. And Juan?
Hey, hello. Juan Muñiz, I'm a Senior Manager of Localization at Bluebeam. I manage a 4-person team, similarly situated in the organization. We are under marketing, however, we are under demand gen and growth. Our products are in 14 languages, and we have a special focus presently in the Nordics and Germany. So
Fantastic. Well, you're both very, very welcome, and thank you so much for joining. So let's jump right in, I guess. I've been in industry a long time, 25 years, and in that time, there's been a number of quite significant inflection points. Maybe things going to the cloud, the emergence of MT, neural MT, the explosion of digital. And it feels like we're at a very significant inflection point now with the emergence and the rapid kind of development of AI and how companies are using AI to, gain efficiencies and cut costs. Over the last 12 months, having witnessed all this, how has that shaped your thinking on or your strategy of your respective localization programs? And maybe Juan, we can start with you on that one.
yeah, I think that it's definitely forced us to take an assessment of our current localization workflows and try to understand where we can gain efficiencies and really take advantage of the changes in the technology. It's also forced us to really look at and try to approach it from a cautious sort of perspective. The AI that we are seeing and that we've kind of toyed around with has introduced some errors into the source text, for example. I think one sort of anecdote that we saw that was sort of funny was that the company name got translated. First of all, it was misspelled and then translated. So we saw that our company name was being translated as a piece of fruit, which was sort of funny, and we were happy to have caught it when we could.
Yeah.
But it was a really good example of how we still need that human intervention, even if we are using some sort of automation or artificial intelligence to help either with the source or with the translation.
For sure. And how about you, Liliana?
Yes, I'll say that we're newer to AI, even though there's been an appetite for AI and for all these technologies. I will say for like the past 16 months. But Vimeo was very cautious in the beginning. I think what we've seen with this increased appetite is that it's helped us to be actually, I don't want to say less cautious, but to be willing to experiment more. One of the things that it definitely helped us do was to push to invest into custom engine training for machine translation. So that's something that we started doing at the beginning of this year, is very new. Other things that we see in our roadmap and strategy is, as I mentioned, we want to start experimenting more with this. We have identified some processes that are very resource heavy, costly, time consuming. So I think that's what's going to be next for us. But in general, yes, we all want to learn how we can use it, in our industries, in our areas of work, even personally, how can I make all the admin work more efficient?
Yeah,
But
right.
definitely, even the things that we do with the engine training and the workflows that we're using for that, we always have a human in the loop. To your point, I use this plugin, that reviews my grammar when I enter emails, and sometimes the suggestions that it gives me is completely the opposite of what I want to say. So definitely, it's fun to experiment, but definitely we need to be cautious.
I think getting to that sweet spot where they complement each other and harnessing AI to kind of empower the human, and that's certainly what we're driving here at Smartling. So as I talk to a lot of clients in my day-to-day and involved in a lot of RFPs, the procurement person or the office of the CFO are getting more heavily involved in decision making and doing the diligence when deciding what vendor or what company to use. And I'm just wondering, have you experienced that? Like, what influences budget or the office of the CFO having when you're deciding your path forward? We're hearing a great thing of doing more with less a lot of the time. So maybe is that something that you're experiencing in Bluebeam?
It is, yeah. And there's always, I think there's always an interest in finding a less expensive and faster way of doing localization, at least in my experience in the industry. And we at Bluebeam we have had some of that pressure to try to lower cost, to try to turn things around. And one of the things, getting back to the previous question, that we've done to address that sort of issue was to try to incorporate the neural machine translation engines in for some of the workflows that we deploy. And we actually did roll out neural machine translation engines for some of our technical support material.
Great.
And in doing so, we're about a year into that experiment, and we've been pretty happy with the quality of the work coming out. Now we do still have a human intervention, a human post edit after the machine translation, and we've been happy enough with the quality of it that we're actually exploring applying the machine translation engines to a wider body of our content, particularly for marketing, specifically the marketing content assets that are being submitted for localization.
That's great. That's great. And maybe as a follow on to that, companies are doing varying different things with the savings or the potential savings of harnessing some level of automation or AI in their workflows. And some are using it to boost the bottom line. Some are using it in more creative ways to maybe enter new markets. Or translate content that hadn't been translated before because they didn't have the budget to do. So again, doing more with less. Liliana, have you experienced some of that in Vimeo?
Absolutely. With the very early results we've seen from the NMT training, we see there's an opportunity for us to use those savings to unlocking that time-consuming, costly, resource-heavy content, more specifically visual assets and video content. That, to have done it well with our current workflows, it will take months and it will be extremely expensive to do it, the standards that we want to have it. So that's, I think, what's immediate in our roadmap. That's one thing we're going to do. In terms of entering new markets, I think we want to see how we can use this technology to expand the scope of support we have in the existing markets first. But definitely entering new markets and translating into more languages is also, in the near future, maybe within the next year or so.
Can I add something to that, Gavin? I wanted to point out too that while we're discussing the incorporation of AI technology into localization specifically, we've also found that there is some benefit toward the creation of assets, the source assets as well. So we've started working with a lot of our teams to really use some of the AI to internationalize some of the assets that they're creating, such that we can optimize localization a little bit later on. So it is having kind of a ripple effect from the work that we're doing in localization, and we're seeing some of the ideas and innovations being taken into the other groups in the organization as well.
That's amazing. That's when it gets really interesting, because it's at every stage, right? And you're gaining efficiencies right from soup to nuts. So that kind of leads me nicely into my next question. Depending on the company, the vertical, the need, and in any given time, the criteria will change. I'm just wondering what criteria you both would use when deciding on what translation mix to use. And what I mean by translation mix is how much of your content goes to the traditional human translation, how much would go to what we're calling AI HT, AI powered human translation, or your traditional MT, neural MT solution. And so maybe Liliana, we could start with that, and I'll come to you as well, Juan, if that's okay.
Sure. I love this question because I believe I said this before. I used to be really torn between the use of this technology for translation as a trained translator. Like I
Yeah.
had something against machine translation, but since I started, managing the team and all these other processes, I've come to realize that there's room for both, right? At Vimeo.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to lean, to one or the other, but there are types of content that we can use machine translation or AI. And so, for example, it took us a while to start using machine translation for things different than help-centered content, basically because we weren't happy with the quality of the translations. But now, to what Juan says before, is that we started using neuro machine translation for some of the marketing content that maybe is not as high visibility as others. So we are willing to sacrifice time and cost for content that's very visible or very sensible, like
Yeah.
legal policies and things. And our marketing and legal stakeholders are champions of that as well. So we really have that balance.
Fantastic. How about you, Juan? Does that ring true for you, or are there different criteria that you look at?
It does, and actually, being the localization team at Bluebeam is centralized in the company, and we do support uh, basically everybody in the organization. And so, one of the things that we did last year was to sit down with all of our key stakeholders and actually have a content tiering exercise, and really
Okay.
sort of, literally, we created a laundry list of all of the types of assets that we were localizing, and then kind of force ranked them and figured out. That was how we looked at what types of content really can we apply machine translation to, and it was how we decided to move forward with the neural machine translation engines on our technical support materials, because we found that it was relatively dry, relatively straightforward, and we wanted to see how it could, just how it would do.
Yeah.
And and as I mentioned, we were happy enough with the quality there that now we're exploring what we can do to expand the use of the machine translation engines on the rest of our content as well.
That's fantastic, and it's what we're certainly seeing as well. There's a level of confidence that's needed before any early adopters with any change. We're certainly seeing the level of confidence and the early adopters harnessing the AI developments much quicker than, if you put your mind back a number of years, MT was very, very slow. So I think it's an exciting time over the next 12, 18 months. And of course, I think the key is to prove the quality or prove the output. That's what certainly we're being asked to do quite.
Since we deployed the neural machine translation engines, we found that we were able to reduce the velocity turnaround time on
Right.
technical support materials from I think prior to the machine translation engine workflow, we were seeing like an average of 9 days turnaround time on certain types of technical support materials, and we were able to trim that down to 5 days
Wow.
once the machine translation engines were deployed. And so, we're aiming for even better efficiencies, and we'll see, kind of across the board for all of our content what velocity looks like once we are, or have rolled them out for marketing materials as well.
That's superb. I mean, my opinion is my personal opinion is that the quality should be a given, and then what can you do on cost and efficiency, right? And that's where it gets certainly exciting for both us and our client base. So, just in general, how will AI shape your respective programs over the next 12 months? Do you think, both internally, vendor based, localization based, kind of a general AI question of how will it improve your life over the next 12 months? And maybe I'll ask that of both of you, and maybe Liliana, you can start.
Sure. I am certain it's going to help us expand the scope of work we do with our internal clients.
Yeah.
And it's going to help us do it more efficiently. So to Juan's point, it's going to help us make it faster.
Yeah.
It's going to help us do it for less without sacrificing the quality. So that's something we're definitely looking forward to. Also streamlining the current processes that we have. And I also want to personally, learn more about how it can help me make my life easier, as I manage these things like productivity
Yep.
tools that I can use. That is something that, yes, of course, it's exciting to see what it can do for localization, but also what it can do for like all the admin stuff that we have to
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. That's the exciting thing for me too.
Exactly. Yeah, we are looking also, I have a localization engineer on my team, and I've sort of tasked her with looking at ways that we can automate some of the, the request intake, the various sort of day-to-day things that we all do,
Yeah,
just to, that end up being time consuming. Just preparing a document for submission into SmartLink, for example, can be a little bit
fantastic.
manual, and if we can train, an AI tool to kind of do that work for us. We're looking at saving quite a bit of time
And that's it.
on day
It's
to
taking
day.
that heavy lifting stuff, right? The
Exactly.
repetitive,
Yeah.
boring stuff,
Yeah.
and opening up all this time to concentrate on strategy and concentrate on
Exactly. Yeah.
the more important things, I guess, for want of a better expression. And then looking forward, this is a question I always ask at the end of any meeting I have with clients on QBRs and stuff. What would you like to see happen in the industry over the next 12-24 months? And maybe Juan, we'll start with you this time.
I'd like to see, uh, I'd like for the concerns over the human impact of the incorporation of AI to really be mitigated.
Yeah,
I think that there's, to the point of, looking for the opportunities in it, there's also lots of concern of what does it mean for people's jobs, for example,
yep,
or, just where do they go? And to the point that we've discussed about kind of figuring out the application of AI to admin, sort of the daily day-to-day things that we do. I'm finding that it allows my employees to really focus on their core competencies. And so,
yeah,
they're getting a little bit better, and there's also more opportunity for them to develop stretch goals. So
yes,
they're really looking for the bright side of it all,
yeah.
and trying to really seize the opportunities that are there for all of us.
It's funny, since we have started incorporating AI in some of our workflows, it's more translators we need rather than less. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's exploded.
Hmm.
Companies are translating much more content, or given the ability to translate much more content. So it's actually, we're growing our supply
Yeah,
chain rather than contracting it. So it's certainly a conversation that we need to have quite openly and transparently, I think, with all
yes,
elements of our industry. I absolutely agree with that.
yeah,
Liliana, how about you?
Yeah, I'll say yes to all of that.
Yes.
Yes to everything Juan shared, and yes to everything you shared, Gavin. I feel we're in a season of exploring and discovering, so absolutely understand the human impact, or the technology impact on, like, how it's going to affect
Yep.
us humans or how it's going to help us. But honestly, I'm really just looking forward to knowledge sharing. I believe our industry does a great job at that,
mhm,
how different
Yes.
teams use the technology, what they're discovering, new use cases. So yes, I would love to hear more success stories and just having a conversation. And yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, both. I think we're at time. Thank you for joining. Some amazing insights there. Hope our audience got some takeaways from it as well. And as Liliana rightly says, our industry is one of sharing. It always has been, and it's what keeps certainly me in the industry as well. So maybe some of the topics we had talk today can be a launch off discussion for wider conversations amongst our community. So again, thank you both so much, and thank you to everyone who joined.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.